they're the more resolute, high definition
Mhm.
ones that
And we're
it's not.
live. Hi, folks. This is James O'Keefe, captain of the Massachusetts Fire Party, and I am today joined by Quartermaster Joe and First Officer Steve. How are you two doing?
Howdy ho.
Good evening, Jamie.
So we have
Doing
a couple of topics to discuss. Joe, you mentioned talking about the new bill that just got signed.
Yeah, so the Build Back Better plan, formerly known as the Build Back Better plan, now they just call it the Inflation Reduction Act. That did actually get passed. We have spoken about it in the past, but a couple caveats that I really just want to make sure I highlight is that there's definitely some things that are going to affect the general populace. They gave money to the one division, like the wildlife division, which is the only division that was actually already in the black, as opposed into the red, like every other division. But this generally, they're throwing money at another geological survey, doing stuff for air pollution, some of the making some of the environmental things that bringing all like the federal buildings and stuff like that. But the big one that everyone's been talking about, where it's the Build Back Better, is transportation infrastructure. And this bill is providing funding to the Federal Highway Administration, to the General Services Administration. Specifically, it provides funding for the Federal Highway Administration for neighborhood access and a quality grant program or equity grant program. So, in that, the Biden is actually keeping one of his core promises. However, when you get into the nitty gritty of it, they're mainly going to be using the money for converting and constructing federal facilities to make them into high performance green buildings. So they're lining the federal buildings and making those nice, rebuilding them, installing low carbon materials, which are higher cost, and going for more sustainable technologies, whatever that exactly means. Um, I think that they're going to probably take the money and not use it for exactly what we're saying. I would love to see what the accounting is going to look like on the back end of that. So, that being said, they are also giving money to Homeland Security. So, the very money that's supposed to be using to help reduce inflation, they're giving it to Homeland Security. What? So, just like every time they pass one of these bills, they try and aim it for a specific point, and then they just totally take the money and run. So, just kind of disappointed in that. What are your thoughts on this one, gentlemen?
I don't know. Any money that is going towards more police seems counterproductive.
It seemed like they're using it for green or better stuff. I mean, I agree with it being used for handling some of the more hazardous materials and things like that. But
Well, I mean, I think the green the building energy efficiency retrofits are probably going to be worthwhile. I mean, buildings are a major source of carbon emissions, so doing things like deep energy retrofits, insulating them, switching them to air source or geosource heat pumps. That's all. Um, the federal, the government owned buildings are the ones that kind of we can count on to get converted. Um, individual homes or businesses, less so, but the federal doing you know doing deep energy retrofits on government buildings seems like low hanging fruit, and we should totally go for it.
well, one of the things this bill is also doing is it increases the minimum royalty rates for oil and gas. So the government's going to be making more money when you drill on federal land. So expect that at the pumps.
I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily say. I mean, the government tends to get a fraction of the value of the oil. So I mean, those are our resources going to warm the planet. You know, we should be getting a higher percentage of that, right?
Yeah.
But is that money actually going to be going where it should be? Is my whole question.
I mean, it's going to go into the general. It's going to go into the general fund, and it'll be allocated to Social Security and the DoD, and a little bit for everything else. So,
I suppose I can agree with that. And
I mean,
so definitely, yeah, they already passed it. This is what happened. So we'll definitely link this in the descriptions and let you guys have a perusal at it so you can see for yourself what they're doing.
And just as a reminder, we covered kind of the environmental implications back on, I think, August 7th or thereabouts. I'll put a link in the chat and in the description, so you could check in on that video.
Yeah. We mainly covered.
Speaking of that, right? So that's a lot of money, and it would be nice if that went towards, I don't know, public transportation, because things are happening in the MBTA. What's up with that?
I mean, you can't, if you're in Massachusetts or in Eastern Massachusetts in particular, you kind of can't not be talking about the MBTA. The MBTA is the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. It has been an agency which is, I think you could make an argument. I don't know. What do you think, JB? Could you make an argument that it's probably been underfunded since the Romney era?
If not earlier. I mean, I'm still amazed that they did all this construction for the Big Dig, which literally had pretty much nothing to do with public transit. And they're like, we have all this debt, and we're just going to saddle it on the MBTA instead of, like, I don't know, earmarking Pike funds towards it, or I don't know.
Yeah, or I was thinking specifically of the the plan to take a certain percentage of sales tax revenue collected and fund the MBTA with that. But as you said, there's also the stuff from the Big Dig. But anyway, the MBTA has been having operational challenges and some reliability challenges over the last few years. About a month ago, we made headlines, or an Orange Line train made headlines, while basically a panel came loose, hit the third rail, and caught the train on fire as it was crossing a bridge. The folks had to, people had to be rescued out. One person jumped off the bridge and swam to shore and just walked away. But it's in such a bad enough state that the decision was made to close down the entire Orange Line, which normally carries about 100,000 people a day during a weekday. So they're closing it down for a month. This happened, I think it was Saturday or Sunday night at no, I take it back. It was Friday night at 9 p.m. There have been, some good remakes of Charlie and the MTA, but Charlie and the MTA being, an old folk song about Charlie, the MBTA, the MTA mascot at the time, who didn't have the exit fare to get off the train, so he just was sort of condemned to ride around Boston on the train for the rest of his life. And
I won't sing it because we'll probably get a copyright violation if I do.
Yeah, we're not.
But he never returned.
Yeah, he never returned. But so this, the sort of the more contemporary version is, the Orange Line. Will it ever return? And of course, Charlie is being personified by our Governor Charlie Baker. This Monday, today, was, I guess, the first weekday of the T being out of service, and I have to hand it to some of the agencies in the Boston area in terms of trying to get people prepared for it. I mean, of course, a big something like this is going to be it's the first day can always be rocky. According to the Globe, it was sort of hit or miss depending on where you were coming to or going to or coming from. But there have been a big spike in blue bike memberships. The Boston Cyclist Union was sort of doing training rides, showing people how you can ride from Forest Hills or Malden Center down to downtown. And I commute by bike anyway, so can't say I have direct experience with it, but it seems like the first day was cautiously okay. But this shutdown will continue for another until September 19th. I think the real test is going to be, or a test will be, what happens when the colleges and schools go back into session. So anyway, I guess the MBTA is kind of like our underdog at the moment. So you got to root for the underdog. The plan behind the closure is to do, an extended amount of maintenance by just, kind of working around the clock. And, from what I understand, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, go
ahead, Jamie. I was just going to say silver lining. Silver lining to it all is that they are still on schedule. They have a schedule. They have it well planned out. And they are on track as of right now.
So I thought that was a pun because there is a silver line, which happens to be a bus. And right now the MBTA is busing everyone, from the Orange Line. And we also can't forget the Green Line. I think that's also closed from Government Center up through Cambridge and Somerville to Union Square.
Yeah. So. And they just opened up. I didn't understand that. Like, they just opened up from what, Lechmere? Well, they opened up they opened up a new Lechmere station and Union Square. So why aren't those open, right? I mean, they should at least go to, Museum Park or Science Park, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the specific maintenance needs are, and I do not remember why they decided to close the Green. They elected to close the Green Line as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be hard to pick up a bus right by Science Park with that weird traffic coming off of 93, coming off of Route 1. Coming in from Cambridge and Boston and then, Star Drive. Oh God, that would be a nightmare.
Well, a big part of it too is that because of all the different safety concerns, them doing it in piecemeal, it would take years and years, and it wouldn't all get done. And then they would have all those safety concerns, and some of them were pretty severe. The real question is they are not addressing all of the safety concerns all at once. So I guess they were cherry picking, though the exact list of what they're handling and what they're not handling has escaped me. So the real question is, what are all the safety concerns with each line?
Yeah, I know they're literally redoing the tracks. They're like they're taking the tracks, either realigning them or even replacing the tracks. What do you call it?
They're doing more than that. They're replacing the pipes underneath the tracks. They're redoing. They're doing a ton of groundwork. They're laying new pipe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So water management, the whole nine.
Mm-hmm. So just to go back to what you said earlier, Steve, about Romney. You're right. I mean, the earmarking of the sales tax, I remember talking with a state rep from Western Mass who was a Republican who felt that that kind of stabilized the amount of money that went from the state coffers into the MBTA. And of course, you know, being in Western Mass, didn't really care much or use the MBTA. I mean, except perhaps when they were in Boston. But I can understand the desire for that, but at the same time, we've seen the after effects of there just isn't enough money.
Part of it, I think, was kind of, you know, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. You know, this just during the 90s, you know, the economy was good. The state took in a fair amount of money through sales tax revenue. And then, you know, in the early 2000s, after, you know, this new financing scheme was put into place, well, we had the dot-com burst or the dot-com crash. We had a recession for quite a while, and, you know, it wasn't, you know, money flowed a little less freely than it did the decade before. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, one of the things I sort of do, I do hope, well, to just give it some context, one of the state agencies sort of involved with this took basically a roadmap of Eastern Massachusetts and sort of overlaid a heat map of areas where they were concerned about traffic congestion. You know, the fear being that, you know, a lot of people, you know, a lot of the people who had been riding the train would drive, and, you know, this is what congestion could look like. There is a sort of a parody account on Twitter called Fake Mass Government Tweets, who took this map and captioned it, you know, Boston road rage can be seen from outer space. You know, one of what, but I mean, this is really what, you know, a transit system is supposed to do. It's supposed to get people around, so that they can have jobs, they can, get to and from work, you know, and in an efficient manner. I mean, in America, you know, we haven't quite learned I don't think we've learned the efficiency aspect of it as well as, say, the Germans have. German rail transportation is extremely efficient. You know, you immediately get the sense of, you know, the whole goal is to move as many people as quickly as possible. Where here we sort of sometimes focus a little too much on, you know, you know, determining whether or not someone is paid a fare. But, you know, this is really, you know, a mass transit system is supposed to be a public benefit. And I hope this isn't a case of, you know, we learn how important it is by losing it for a while. Or actually, maybe that would be a good outcome as long as, you know, we continue to invest in it and maintain it and make sure the system operates and, you know, works for the people who ride it.
Well, you brought up the big dig. You brought up the big dig. Like, you look at, and you brought up Europe, and if you look at tunnel work in Europe versus what we have here in Boston, like, we spent so much money on the big dig, and that tunnel is filthy. It's disgusting. It's falling apart. You look at, like, its comparison over in, like, England and, like, where they have other tunnels in Europe, and those tunnels are always so much cleaner, so much neater, so much better maintained. And so I think that there's an underlying problem that we're not maintaining, we're not upkeeping our stuff the way we should be, especially being the powerhouse that we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a first world country. We're supposed to be like the superpower, and yet we can't even keep our roads without potholes.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't skate forever on the work that was done, you know, in decades past. That's just all there is to it.
Well, I remember there was recently, I think it was in Boston, there was a water main that broke that was well over 100 years old.
And they have 8 of those a year.
Well, you know, this is, you know, being involved in town government, I can tell you that we have a program of water and sewer line replacement. So in terms of water line replacement, every year we do a mile. We put down a mile of brand new pipe, rip out the old stuff. So this is all well and good until you realize that there are about 130 miles of it. So, that's a replacement cycle, a whole system replacement cycle of 130 years. And I mean, our public works director is, I recall him saying it at a town meeting, some time ago that, at some point in the future, he's thinking about, asking to do for the money to do 2 miles a year, because he would feel better about a 65-year-old system than a 130-year-old system. So, it's some of the challenges with this stuff is that, when you're doing greenfield development, it's a little bit easier. When you're, ripping apart infrastructure that's been in the ground and buried for 100 years, it's a little more disruptive. But, that's once you've got it, you do have to maintain it.
Yeah. Speaking of disruptions.
Sure. Good transition.
No, go ahead, Jamie. I keep on interrupting you, and I deeply apologize.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying, with sea level rise and, increasing 90-degree days or 100-degree days, there's going to be need for a lot of replacing of public infrastructure and private infrastructure. So it's going to be interesting to see how that, bears out, when Boston is Venice, maybe putting sewage under the water.
Management mindset that goes along with it. But I mean, if you look at, consider we're in a drought, right? We're in the middle of a drought. It's one of the worst droughts we've had. And we're actually in really good shape compared to some of the other parts of the country. But, you have days like, this past week prior to, today's rain where, there would be special weather notices of, dry grass, low humidity, warm temperatures. It's really opportune weather for an uncontrolled burn. So, so as a municipality, what do you do if like 500 acres burns and, it takes down some buildings, and now you have you basically have to juggle your finances, because the buildings that aren't there, you can't exactly charge property tax on them, let alone the whole, there's sort of the whole life cycle of, what's the immediate response, the short-term cleanup measures, helping people relocate, rebuilding, which is a logistical poop hole by itself, or potentially, and, then dealing with the economic fallout of it. I mean, it can be it's one of those things that, yeah, it could be very bad. It could be very, very, very bad.
So, Joe, you had a transition for us.
Oh, I did. And the transition was kind of one of the last things that is very much concerns us pirates, which has to do with privacy, right to dignity, and whatnot. And one of the things that this whole train thing has highlighted, at least for me, is the response. So our response to it has been really, really well with the buses and everything, and the traffic control, and how well they've been able to manage it with everyone doing bikes and doing buses. However, something that is concerning is one with the bill and how much is being dumped into the transportation department, and most specifically the mass transportation control, which is basically a giant room where they watch all of us, and then they have behind them their supervisors watching them watch us. So imagine a room just filled with cameras watching every little move we do and how we do it. These people call the police when things happen, or just when they think things happen on us, or when they see somebody who maybe swerved a little bit because you're balancing that double latte and answering 10 business calls on the phone. These are the people that watch what we're doing. And so I wanted to just take a moment to highlight, maybe not come up with a solution, but highlight something that I can see as a potential problem down the road. as far as the nanny state is going. And so, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, a lot of it, for me, a lot of it comes down to purpose. So if the idea is to just sort of broadly monitor traffic from a wider range of vantage points so that you could notice backups and adjust signal timing someplace downstream, or perhaps, notice that there is a tractor trailer that has jackknife and there's nothing moving at all. Maybe it's okay. A lot of it, as with any kind of sort of data collection program, it really depends on what's the intended use, and how do you sort of ensure that whatever information you're collecting or you're using or the purpose of the monitoring is consistent with what the stated goals were.
It's already been proven that law enforcement has used this data in order to bust criminals that they had no evidence on. There was that case where they busted the guy going back and forth, I believe, on the Bourne Bridge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that guy. This is the same control system.
Mhm.
These are the same people. So, or at least these are the same. This is the infrastructure by which that was done. And they had nothing else on this guy other than he just went over the bridge a whole heck of a lot. Now, and so they used it in order to say, hey, question. They did their standard, hey, totally invading somebody's rights. Obviously, there was something suspicious about this guy. They found a whole bunch of drugs on him, and the rest is history. But that doesn't mean that they're not watching you, they're not watching me, and they're not watching, for reasons. And with all the extra money dumped into Homeland Security all of a sudden, that just makes me go, wait a minute.
I mean, sort of in a way, it's an extension of what Boston has routinely done over the last decade to public demonstrations. If there's something big happening in front of the State House, well, then there's a camera put up. If there's a demonstration happening at the round building on Boston Common, whose name I'm blanking
Parkman
on.
Bandstand.
Yeah, the Parkman Bandstand. Then a whole bunch of cameras come, go up there. Maybe they stay on, maybe they come off, but it just kind of,
They're still on.
It is what it is, and it's unfortunate, but unlike there's the United States is not necessarily, yes, we have the Fourth Amendment, we have the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, but in terms of like data privacy, the Europeans are a lot further ahead of us.
Well, my question then is, if I could get in trouble for recording you, Steve, and I could most certainly get in trouble for recording you, there are laws against it in Massachusetts. Why is the government allowed to record us?
So the honest answer is, as I'm aware of it, is in Massachusetts, video recordings are covered under the Massachusetts Wiretap Act. So which goes by it's a two-party consent system. So which
you mean
means
audio recordings?
Well, the video, to the best of my knowledge, video recordings are generally held to the same standard. You're not allowed to make a secret recording, but if you are recording and you make this plainly known, then the fact that the person you're recording stays, where they are, and knows that you're recording them, the fact that they stay there is considered consent.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that video is recorded is held to the same standard.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it where it's useful from a traffic congestion standpoint. So if you're looking at the Pike, right, we have all these transponders, or we just have the gantries that will take pictures of people's license plates to know who to charge and things like that. If you're monitoring it, I mean, well, first I should say the pirate position is they should be torn down, and we already paid for them. Why do we have tolls on this? But whatever. but if there's metrics if the license plate data is kind of cordoned off and can only be used for billing purposes and cannot be used for tracking purposes, and all you're getting out of the towers is, we've got 15 cars go through that in a minute period and suddenly it drops to 0, right? Well, then that indicates that there's an accident between
or something.
Or something happened. Aliens landed. I don't know, but
Somebody put their foot on the hose. Yeah.
right, there's some disruption there, and you can kind of get those metrics without getting any personally identifying information, or where you position the cameras. Like if you position the cameras to look straight down and maybe make it a little blurry, then you'll see there's a car shape or a truck shape, but you won't know exactly it is the shape of a Hummer versus the shape of a Prius or something like that. And you certainly won't get the license plate, and probably you won't even be able to see in the windshield, because usually if you look at it from the top, you might see someone's hands, but and so that's, you could use AI theoretically, or some other machine learning to be able to like figure out this blob is a car and to count those, and that's useful, but again, you don't have any personally identifying information.
Yeah, I think the problem really rests in where's this data, how is it being stored, and how is it being used? Because I'm pretty sure that even though might be collected for the right purpose, I highly doubt it's going to be just used for the right purpose.
Oh yeah, scope creep it's an issue.
So, and I just wanted to make all of my mateys well aware of it. So
in researching this segment, I'll just point out that we found some interesting things when we were searching for Department of Transportation Highway Operations Center or Traffic Operations Center. There's a whole video series on that, which we'll put in the description, and even a Flickr page. Who knew Department of Transportation had a Flickr page? I mean, cool. Just want to do a quick shout out before we sign off. Viewer John sent us a link about Mass lawmakers have cleared the way for Robert Kraft to build a new soccer stadium for the New England Revolution in Everett, which will be an interesting thing. I don't know how much state money or town money is going to go into that one. So
is that going to go where like the gas tanks are in the power plant?
Looking at it, yes, it's right next to, there's big development plans, so it is very near the gas tanks.
Okay.
Link.
Or what I guess will be at some point in the future former gas tanks. But
well, yeah, it's not like we don't need those gas tanks, right? The stadium parcel will replace the power plant, apparently.
Yes.
John noted.
Not to be funny, but that revolution might be explosive.
I don't know. There's already the casino, right? I'm looking at the picture for it, and like traffic is already crazy. How are you going to have a 20,000 person stadium there? Are they going to do water taxis from everywhere? That might make sense.
Well, as someone who spent several years living a few blocks from Fenway Park, if you're in that situation, you get a sense of you keep track of when the home games are.
John says that the legislation exempts the property from a whole host of regulations, such as designated port area, environmental cleanup, setbacks, height restrictions. It's a stadium, so I guess it's going to be tall, though probably it won't be as tall as Foxborough Stadium. Mm-hmm. So with that, we'll look further into that, and I'm sure we'll pontificate further on it. I want to thank everyone who is watching this, either in real time or at a delay. And thank you for for watching this. Sorry about some of the video. I don't know what is happening on our end, but we'll get that squared away for the next one. And as always, you can find us at masspirates.org. We have an event coming up next Saturday in Nashua, New Hampshire. There's a link in the description for that, as well as our party conference will be October 8th. And we have other things coming up as well for low Boston area meetings and things like that. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe and all of that. If you have any comments, you can always send us an email at info@masspirates.org. You can put a comment in the video or in the webpage that will accompany this on our blog at masspirates.org. And in addition to that, we welcome any help you can give. If you want to help make this show a reality, give us, send us an email, info@masspirates.org. Thank you, Steve and Joe. Hope you have a wonderful week, and thankfully it will not be too hot.
Thank you, and have a great night.
Bye.
All right. We are